Hello, Bible readers. Psalm 19 has a different vibe, I thought. Just the pacing of the words. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. There's a very, there's a meter to it that not every psalm, and obviously in translation, not every psalm gets to keep its poetic nature, but this one sounded different. So as I got done with Psalm 19, the first thing my Brugam and Bellinger commentary said is it's a quote from C.S. Lewis, the famous 20th century writer. He wrote all the Narnia books, if you're familiar with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and all of those. He wrote lots of theological stuff like Mere Christianity and the Screwtape Letters, and he wrote science fiction. Anyway, he says, I take this, Psalm 19, to be the greatest poem in the Psalter and one of the greatest lyrics in the world. So how about that? But I'm not saying it's all downhill after this one, but I guess C.S. Lewis might. Kidding. Psalm 23 is right around the corner. There's lots of psalms that are great to come. Psalm 19 is a hymn of praise, sandwiched in the midst of a bunch of royal psalms, 18, 20, and 21. They're all royal psalms. And this hymn of praise, Psalm 19, focuses on creation, then the Torah, and then in thanks for creation and the Torah, makes a petition. It's a sequence that's very clear, very distinctive to Psalm 19. And it's a sequence that serves one theme, and that is the revelation of God, the revealing of God. God is first and perhaps foremost revealed through creation. I mean, just listen to verse 1. The heavens are telling the glory of God. Day to day pours forth speech. Night to night declares knowledge. It's like, just step outside and notice. Just look up and you will hear, figuratively speaking, you'll hear creation reminding you of God's provisions, that God did this. And then after 4 verses of the creation part of the psalm, it narrows from a broad thanksgiving of all creation to focusing on the Son, which is natural, I think, because you got to remember, in this part of the world at this time in history, so many religions have a sun god. The sun maybe is God, so it would be very appropriate for the psalmist to speak to this particular part of creation. So here the psalmist wants to claim that ancient Israel's one true God is the creator of the sun. My commentary says, it is commonly suggested that the sun, so prominent in the first part of the psalm, is in the ancient Near East associated with order and justice. Well, that's a perfect segue. If you're going to start broad about creation, then get a little bit more particular about the sun. Well, if the sun is connected to justice and order, that's a perfect segue into the second part of the psalm, which talks mostly about God's law, right? The Torah. So it goes from giving thanks for creation to giving thanks for God's Torah. God is revealed in God's instructions. So another way to look at how this psalm does what it does is that it goes from broad to specific, from the heavens to the sun, in particular to the law, and that in each way of revelation, we know God more and more and more until finally a worshiper blessed with the opportunity to be in creation, blessed with the opportunity to follow God's Torah, well, that person would respond or speak words that are, as the psalm ends, acceptable or pleasing to God, like a sacrifice. We can make sacrifices back to God once God has revealed God's self as the God of creation and the God of Torah. So just to reiterate that a little bit, the on-ramp into righteousness, into a right relationship with God starts as broad as that on-ramp can be. Like, just see the heavens, be a human and you're going to see the heavens. Experience day and night. That's where a blessed relationship with God that leads to fruitful human relationships starts. And from the on-ramp of day and night, that broadness, we can be then brought into God's instructions, the Torah. And from there, since the law is taught and practiced in community, we find ourselves able to respond to life and all it brings with wisdom. Last thing. Before the last thing. So we're brought into the presence of God to pray a psalm. And so that's, generally speaking, what's happening is in the presence of God, as we say these words, we're reminded that this relationship starts as easy as just noticing creation, and then we get drawn in through the instructions of God that we would then know what to say and how to say it in thanksgiving. Okay, now last thing, about the last word of the psalm, Redeemer. When the psalmist says, God is my rock and my Redeemer. In the holiness code of the Torah, a Redeemer, like if we were to define it, it is the next of kin who redeems a person from dire circumstances. This would be your in case of emergency person that goes on that form you have to fill out at the hospital. Like, who would you call to bail you out of jail if need be? Who's got your back always? In Psalm 19, the psalmist is saying, God, the creator of all things, the gifter of the law that brings wisdom, the one who makes it possible for sinner though I am to live in the direction of life instead of only selfishly and stupidly dying toward death, that God is the psalmist's Redeemer. Their, in case of emergency contact person who's always got their back. It's an extraordinarily intimate and confident thing to say. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.